Welcome to Friday night's video in our Master Series. This is the 41st video in our Master Series and the 11th video in our first phase processing dealing with sound sculpting. This is probably going to be the last video in sound sculpting because at this point the most rudimentary things that we've dealt with without getting into some things we'll get into next steps have been dealt with. There's lots of other things to do, but that's about as far as I'm going to take it for now. So basically, the next thing we wanted to talk about was splitting frequencies was the first thing. So splitting frequency areas, well, two things. First of all, we'll talk about splitting channels. So in my DAW, you might have to look around. In my DAW, I can put these splitters on here that I can split the signal into all kinds of different paths so that I can do colorization. So the concept of this is I can leave this one open, like this is the one signal coming out. I can put a splitter on here and another signal. I can do different types of processing on these all over the place. And pretty soon I've got, well, like this is the color blue. I've made it a different color blue. I've made it a different color blue. And I get all these different colors of blue that I've processed and done all kinds of processing on that I mix them together to come out in the end with a really cool shade of blue. That is a really simple concept and something you should look into and experiment with. And I tried to explain to you, I suggested this plugin right here called Sigmod because you can change the signal path and modify the signal path with this thing in lots of different ways, doing all kinds of different things with the signal that you can put effects and processors on and all kinds of things, and it's a really good tool for signal processing. It's called Sigmod by Nugent for signal modification. So that's a huge thing that you should really look into and experiment with. I won't get into all the things it can do, but it can do a lot for splitting up the frequency to do different work on it and then to convolve them back together in one signal. So other than that, then besides that, we want to talk about frequency splitting. Now this is a huge concept also because if I go in here and I've got a splitter on here, I've got a test tone that's coming through here that's around 440 hertz or something like that, and it's just coming across there like that. Well, if I put like trash 2 on here to add some even and odd harmonics, that you can see even and odd harmonics going across there. Well, let's just pretend that's a sound, any sound. Now the understanding of that's any sound, if you start doing processing on the whole envelope is affected. But if you can process just like, let's say, that fundamental. So I've split the frequencies up so this side over here is just affecting this fundamental frequency. It won't be affecting the rest of these. So anything you do to this, it's going to add harmonic content or whatever you're doing to it to the whole thing, but it's not going to act on these with mathematical calculations, which can cause mud. And I'll give you a really quick understanding of that is on this trash 2 here, I've added full spectrum saturation, but I don't want it causing saturation off all these harmonics. I just want it functioning off that fundamental so I get cleaner saturation, and I turn it on and I get this other saturation happening. So if I edit this and I bring it in, then what's going to happen is I've got it set on 0 right now, but if I go in here and start editing at this, watch what happens with the saturation coming in. It's not acting on any of the other harmonics, so the saturation is much cleaner. If it starts acting on these other harmonics, it's going to add intermodulation, distortion, and all kinds of issues that it starts getting muddy. But if you're just trying to process off like the basic fundamental first frequency and the first harmonic or something like that, is as close as you can get it, and sometimes frequency splitting, I'll get to that in a minute, but off that first harmonic, then I'm running that saturation, and that saturation is clean as silk. It's going full spectrum, there's no waviness going on, and it's acting off that first harmonic so that the processing is only acting on that fundamental harmonic, and it's not acting on the other ones. If I have it act on the other ones in conjunction, it'll start looking messy. So the understanding of this can get very complicated, But the idea of it is you can deal with it in all kinds of different ways. So where you can put another splitter here, and you can split the frequencies on that one also. You've got one there, I've got another splitter there, I've split the frequency again, and I can have on this side or this side different frequencies that I'm ranges that, you know, from like, say I want to mess with everything up to the middle. Does that make sense? Because this one's already only sending everything after the fundamental up to here. So then I want to separate that, just the mid-range frequencies. And then I could put another splitter on there. This is just one example with one tool. And on this one, I could just split it again so that I'm just dealing with just the upper end frequencies over here. Does that make sense? I know that sounds confusing and be complicated, and there's how you're going to get that done. Sigmod is an option, other tools that you can deal with. I use my DAW, can do this real well to where I can split up the frequency ranges of I've got this fundamental over here, I've got over here, I've got those harmonics up above it, up to a certain frequency level, up to say maybe the second harmonic and the third harmonic, or just the second harmonic because it stops right up in here. So that one stops right up like around close to 900 hertz. So I'd have this set about 900 hertz. And then coming over to here would be above that. And I can set that again up to so many hertz. And then I can have the upper range over in there. So that's a huge tool because once you understand that and experiment with it, that the idea that you affecting only certain frequency ranges with whatever you're trying to do is a huge tool. Because let's say that, you know, you don't want to affect the fundamental and you want to add just reverberation back here, or you've got the fundamental basically and you only want to add reverb to it because you're only going to get reverb off the basic okay, a fundamental sound like a vocal, you know, the fundamental frequencies in it, the fundamental even and odd harmonics, not all this tail end that you might only want to put reverb on the first, you know, 5 or 6 harmonics, and then not put reverb on the rest because this stuff will start multiplying, cause things like, you know, it'll fold back, intermodulation, distortion, and things like that, but it'll just add reverb onto these first 4, 5, 6 harmonics, and it'll add it to this, but it won't start causing a muddy mess, which you can do a much more detailed job of whatever kind of processing you're doing. Now, I can go all day long of where that could be applicable. That can be applicable in any of the sound sculpting we've done and in any of the processing we're going to do, and in mixing also. So it can be used in all kinds of different areas, and it's a huge tool for you to sit down once you've gone through my whole series and go, where and doing that, could I use that? That it would be cool. Well, then I can just apply it to the trailing harmonics or the fundamental or just the upper end. I want to do something just the upper end that's going to do something. Just reverb up at the upper end of it because I want the nice clarity in the first 5, 6, 7, 8 harmonics, and then in the upper end I want those trailing harmonics to have some reverb on it. What effect does that do? Ooh, that's kind of cool. Does that make sense? There's lots of applications. So just make a note of it. Try to figure out some way you can do it in your DAW and start experimenting with it as we talk about things that where you could apply that, because you can apply it in lots of different areas to do a lot of different things. So peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video when we get out of actually sound sculpting and get into effects.